All right, let's talk underrated quarterbacks. I usually just do 7, but I kind of just wanted to to add on a quarterback because I feel like there's 8 that I wanted to talk about because, I like to look at these like, I do my own quarterback rankings with Kyle on the podcast every year. When I do that, I like to look at what other people feel about these quarterbacks. And there were just some that I disagreed with, and I think people should be higher on. So because of that, let me talk about those quarterbacks here. Let's get into the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL, starting off with number 8. I'm going Kyler Murray, who, I don't know. Ultimately, okay, listen, those Seattle games were the most important games of the year for the Cardinals, and he didn't play his best football in those games. So I can understand having some pushback, and Kyler's issue has always been he's just too inconsistent. He looks great when he's on, but has those down games too. But, I don't know, he looked really good when he was on, and I do feel like for someone who the past couple years struggled with injuries, struggled with the inconsistencies, I think last year kind of showed, no, he is a real player in the NFL and a good player in the NFL, in my opinion. So I think he's getting a bit underrated. And so because of that, I wanted to still make sure I added him to this list, which is why I added on an extra slot just to include him. Number 7, I'm going CJ Stroud. People talk about him as though he just completely fell off last year, and that's not true. I think that he was so good as a rookie. We were expecting him to continue to develop and potentially be a Joe Burrow or a Josh Allen. I don't know if we're expecting Mahomes, but we were expecting another really good, potentially elite level quarterback. And it just didn't quite happen. Now, I think part of this was he got a bit overrated his rookie year. He got MVP votes his rookie year, which that he just wasn't quite on that level. And I think because of that, when he then ends up being a top 10 quarterback this past year, people were like, oh, he's been underwhelming. When the reality is no, he's been pretty similar to how he was last year. Maybe you'd like a little bit more of a jump, but he's still a good quarterback, and I think that, he showed it in the playoffs. Okay, let's make some people mad with number 6. What are you talking about, Jackson? How the hell is the guy that everyone talks about how great he is somehow underrated? Again, I was looking at a lot of people's list on top quarterbacks, and you'd be shocked, or at least I was shocked, at how often Mahomes was not number 1. He was number 1 maybe half of the time, if that. I think less than half of the time, which to me, that's underrated. He should be number 1 with a bullet. We shouldn't even think about this. That's how I view Patrick Mahomes. Maybe, I've been accused of being a Mahomes simp or whatever since I've been doing this channel, but I think he's clearly the best quarterback in football. I get that the box score stats aren't as impressive, but the reason why I push back on that is the guy had a brutal offensive line last year, not great weapons, statistically the worst receiving core to make a Super Bowl. Travis Kelce is not what he once was. Yes, he does have Andy Reid, and that of course helps, but and a very good defense, although not as good of a defense as they had in previous couple years. And he still made this a top 10 offense that was able to get to the Super Bowl and was awesome. He was awesome in the playoffs, except for the Super Bowl where he struggled. That's fair to say. He's still the best quarterback in football. So yeah, slightly underrated, but still very highly rated. Because again, that's how that can work, right? Underrated doesn't just mean good, or it doesn't, you can be, if people think you're the 3rd best quarterback and you're the best, then you're underrated. That's how I view it. But also why he's lower on the list, because everyone still does rate him highly. Number 5, a more traditional underrated type player of Gino Smith, a guy who, when the Raiders traded for him, a lot of people were saying Raiders, are you sure you're making the right move here? You're getting an okay quarterback, but I think Gino Smith's really good. I think he's a top 10 caliber quarterback. Again, box score stats weren't great, but another guy with really a bad offensive line. Was still able to make a lot happen. Underrated playmaker. He's not just a game manager. When things break down, he can make things happen. So I'll definitely pound a table for Geno Smith. I think he's a good quarterback and an underrated one, so he's number 5 on the list. Number 4, I am going to go with Justin Herbert, who it is this weird thing where it feels like Herbert it's such a lightning rod where people either go crazy over him or talk, about him as though he's the worst quarterback ever. It's this very weird thing. I think he's a very good quarterback. I don't think he's in the elite tier, and I think that sometimes we tried to get him in the elite tier, no, he's not quite there, but man, he was really good last year. He was so efficient in that offense and still was able to make big plays when he had to. He was horrible in the playoffs. He just was. He had a horrible playoff game, and that has to knock his value a little bit. But I actually didn't think he played that badly in the playoff game the last time they played. Like, yeah, the defense couldn't make a single stop against Trevor Lawrence in the second half. I didn't think that comeback was really his fault too much. I thought that he played well in that game and played really well last year. So, like, again, do some people overrate Herbert? Yes, but I think there's more who underrate him. So that's why I'm putting him number 4 on my list. Number 3, I'm going Jaden Daniels, who I think is awesome. And I put him at number 5 on my quarterback list, just behind those elite guys. To me, he was with those elite guys his first year. And, like, a lot of people have compared him to Stroud of like, well, everyone thought Stroud was great and that didn't work out. To me, Daniels has been a clear leg up on what Stroud was in his rookie year. And Stroud was really good as a rookie. I think Daniels is just on another level. I mean, that playoff game against Detroit, I know that all the Detroit Lions defense was injured, but he was still just on fire in that game. And even the conference championship blowout wasn't really his fault. His team kept fumbling the ball and his defense couldn't get a stop. The defense still definitely has issues for Daniels. They just do. But, like, yeah, I think he's awesome. I think he's underrated, and I think we should already talk about him as though he's a elite level quarterback. Number 2, I'm going Bryce Young. Bryce Young of the Carolina Panthers, so Bryce Young came into the league, really struggled his rookie year. No getting around it. Just didn't play well. Started year 2, really struggled to the point where Dave Canales said, you know what? This just isn't working. We got to go a different direction. He puts in Andy Dalton. Dalton, looks better when he goes out there. Ultimately, Dalton has a car accident where he gets injured. Bryce Young gets thrown back in and plays well. And I feel like people kind of talk about Bryce Young. I'm like, oh yeah, he showed some like nice things, whatever, fine, looked competent. No, like he was legitimately good down the stretch. If you were watching him, he was playing like good football. I think I was making a film study every week, not every day, every week about Bryce Young, and it's just like, no, like these are good plays. Like he's making things happen like that. Those Adam Thielen 3rd down and 8 plays were just automatic last year. You get him in a better situation, I think he could be really good. I think Bryce Young, people don't realize how good Bryce Young was towards the end of last year. It's a small sample size. You can't get too optimistic, but he was really good. And number 1 on my list, well, let's get people angry again with Aaron Rodgers being my most underrated quarterback in football right now, which, again, strictly just talking football playing here. I feel like people talk about Rodgers last year as though he was like ridiculously awful and like he was like unplayably bad, when that's just not true. He had a lot of really good games last year and his play on the field wasn't bad at all. If anything, he was a bright spot last year for the Jets with his play on the field. Now, I think there is logic to like the leadership, the fact that he's going to want to bring along 8 of his friends when he goes to a different team, that kind of stuff, I think sunk the Jets a little bit, and you could argue that was inherently negative value. But again, strictly on the football field, but people say, like, oh, he just looked old last year. I feel like you didn't watch him play. Like he just straight up did not. And I know his box score stats are a bit overinflated, but and he wasn't perfect. He definitely had his bad games and bad moments for sure. I'm not saying he was like prime Aaron Rodgers, but he was a totally, top 15 to 20 range quarterback last year, probably around 15. Like there's value in that. So again, given the way people talk about him as though he's like just can't throw a football, like no, he's a pretty good quarterback still, at least on the field. So yeah, those are my thoughts on all of that. But those are my 8 most underrated quarterbacks in football. Let me know in the comments below. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.